Hello, and welcome to another fantastic episode of That Cruise Show with our co-hosts, James and Ashley Kay. We originally were supposed to have Harry from Atlas Ocean Voyages with us today, but because of the hurricane and different storms going on, Ashley Kay was not sure if her power would be back on, so we decided to hold off till next week when we know for sure she would be on. But today she is on.
Yes, they originally like Northeast, like Pennsylvania and Jersey, and I think even like Maryland and Delaware got pretty slammed by Isaias. I think that's how you say it. The storm that was hurricane that was coming through. So we lost power yesterday for a few hours. They originally told us it would be back on at 8 p.m. today. So I was like, ooh, podcast tomorrow. Not sure how that's going to work, but here we are.
We're glad to have you.
Yeah.
Well, today we decided to talk to two people who James and I know who have never cruised before. And we're going to try to answer all their questions between the three of us. And hopefully we'll do such a great job that they'll want to go on a cruise or at least plan one for the future ASAP. So welcome, Kevin and Ashley S.
Hi, how's it going?
Kevin's actually been talking to me about wanting to go on a cruise. And I think there was 2 dates that he was going to do this fall, and unfortunately, both dates have now been surrendered to the lords of the depth. But I'm sure that we're going to get Kevin on a cruise coming up pretty soon.
Well, I hope so. Maybe I'll answer some questions to myself.
We'll do the wine. You'll be on the wine cruise I'm planning for next year.
All right. Sign me up on that one too.
Yeah, that sounds lovely. My goodness.
I don't suppose cruising to Catalina on the Catalina Express constitutes an actual cruise.
I don't think so.
No.
But taking one of the princess ships or Holland America goes there too would count.
Okay.
Well, actually, I was dating a girl whose mom lived on Catalina, so she went from Catalina and got on the ship and did all the Bon Voyage stuff, and then went to Catalina and went off to work, and then got back on it when it left.
Oh, how funny.
She just wanted all the pomp and circumstance of it leaving and the excitement of it, leaving the port of Long Beach.
Now that's actually it's actually an interesting thing you bring up, because I think one of the questions that I didn't realize, and I know I'm breaking things here by asking.
You guys are messing me up here. No, okay.
No, so one of the things I think that new cruisers don't understand, and I didn't quite understand it initially, even though I'd cruised before, was that even though you have a cruise, let's say from Long Beach to San Diego to Ensenada, for instance, as one of the routes, I was thinking originally like, oh, you know what, if a friend doesn't like the cruise from the first day, he can just get off in San Diego and drive home. Or even if he got off in Ensenada, you could just drive home. Because Ensenada's like 20 miles, like an hour from San Diego or something. But you're not able to do that even though it is that close, because then the cruise lines get in big trouble, and presumably you get in big trouble too with CBP, because they don't have the record of you getting in there. So I think that's one of the misconceptions that I would like to clear up, because I was spreading bad information before.
Well, I think, not to go too deep into the weeds, because we're sort of, it's this week is more for people who haven't cruised and, don't want to confuse anyone. But there are laws, like James, you were saying, that you can't really go from, U.S. port to U.S. port without calling on a foreign port before you disembark. And with a cruise, you can disembark early, but you have to make plans with the cruise line ahead of time. Like, you can't just decide while you're in the middle of your cruise to do it, because they do have to let the proper authorities know. And even if you do make arrangements ahead of time, I believe there are certain ports where you will pay a tax, like a fee, in order to do that. And I think Mexico is one of them. I could be wrong on that, but I think it's not much. It's, just a few dollars, but it's kind of, I don't know if it's to pay them to do all the paperwork that's involved or whatever, but it's a lot of red
immigration
tape.
Authorities are no joke.
That makes sense.
But usually 99% of the stuff that you do, if you just pay your $5, $10, $20 charge, you're pretty much good. Except for drugs and guns, and we're not doing either of those on a cruise.
I'm looking down because I'm trying to share this on my pub club page, and I'm not having much success with it. So I am engaged. That's why I'm looking down. on my phone. So.
Sure, Kev.
While Kevin's doing that, I know Ashley S. rather. What are some of your questions as a cruiser?
I already knew who you're talking about.
Well,
I feel like we're on recess.
our news first. You missed our news section, James.
All right.
We haven't even
news
gone
first.
there.
Well, see, I'm just in Hawaii on Pride of America right now, so I'm a little out of touch because I've been enjoying some of Norwegian's fabulous cocktails.
I'm going to pass it over to Ashley K for.
There's a lot of cruise news.
Yeah.
Some not so good news this week. We had a few lines that were resuming cruises in Europe and Alaska as well. And 4 of them, I think now, maybe 5, I've started to lose count, unfortunately, have had COVID issues on board. So they've had to cut the sailings short, which of course does not bode well at all for resuming sailing anywhere right now, even in places that are not the US. Alaska, of course, is. But and something else that was interesting that happened just a couple of days ago is MSC Cruises, which not everyone is super familiar with, but they're one to keep an eye on because they have so many new ships on order that they will soon surpass some of the bigger lines like Carnival and Royal Caribbean in terms of the number of ships that they have in their fleet, which is impressive. They were looking to resume sailing in Europe as well and came up with a list of protocols that they're going to be introducing. And a lot of them are ones that we've already heard about, like checking temperatures and stuff like that. But the most interesting tidbit is that they are now going to require you to book a shore excursion through the cruise line in order to leave the ship when you're in port. So on a cruise, you can normally come and go as you please. You don't have to book an excursion. You can go wander around on your own, check out some of the shops, check out restaurants, hail a taxi, and go wherever you want to go on your own, as long as you're back in port on time to get back on the ship when it leaves. But now they're not going to be allowing people to do that unless they book an excursion through the cruise line. So you can't even, as far as I understand it, you can't even book a third-party excursion. And if you do book an excursion through the line, you also have to pay for insurance. And I guess the theory is that they want to be able to monitor where passengers have been, what they've been exposed to, make sure that there's a constant stream of hand sanitizer and masks provided, which is great. But I think it could easily double or triple the cruise fare, the overall cruise price for the passengers, number one. Number two, I'm concerned about the impact it might have on some of these ports that regularly depend on passengers coming ashore, going shopping, using the taxi services, which, they're only going to be able to go, I'm sure, to certain shops, certain restaurants that are approved by the cruise line ahead of time. And the cruise lines, of course, will, I'm curious to see if they'll roll this out in the US as well. And if so, whether there will be pushback, because the cruise lines are sailing, when they resume, they're planning to sail at reduced capacity. So this is a way for them to make up some of that lost revenue. But we'll see what happens, I guess. That's kind of a big one now. I think that's one that very few people, if any, saw coming in terms of new protocols.
Yeah, I'd be very interested to see how that actually manifests, because on one side, the cruise industry is extraordinary at revenue management, so I'm sure there was a economic equation in there. But to be completely fair to the cruise industry, I think that having a closed bubble, being able to extend that closed bubble off the ship, has value to the onshore people as well. But I think certainly it's a thing to watch, because if it is successful, that's going to be something that extends, maybe not 5 years from now, but certainly for the next year and a half, as we start cruising. That being said, if it's something that's published ahead of time, as opposed to somebody who has, say, already booked Seaside for spring 2020 or 2021 rather, then I don't think it's such a bad thing. It's just you just go in there understanding what the costs are going to be, and adjust. But certainly it's a thing to keep an eye on. I'm sure the folks at world's leading cruise lines are not oblivious to this concept.
Now I'm going to go on a little tangent for a moment. Sorry, everyone. I was reading on, let me bring it up here and I'll read it to you. Of course, last week we had on Captain Dan, who is the owner, CEO of Uncruise Adventures. And today I was reading the Anchorage Daily News, and they were talking about how They had a passenger on board that tested negative before they came, and then they retested the person right when they got off the plane, and that came back, and it was 3 days later, and they came positive. So they're quarantining everybody in hotels. But the media is driving me crazy because they wrote this. Cruise ships have been fingered as the prime sources for coronavirus spread since the earliest days of the pandemic. And large cruise ships have been forbidden for sailing in the United States, blah, 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 blah. Now, my thing with this is, okay, there's the way that they put it, that we're the prime, cruising is a prime way to spread. That's absolutely not true. The only reason why you're finding it on cruise ships is because you have people that are together and then it shows up. Because I can tell you from last week, Captain Dan, they've come up with so many protocols to not have it spread, and they caught it in time, so left it. The thing about, now we're getting to the coronavirus aspect, is seeing what's happening on these cruise ships throughout the world right now that are starting, is that I think it's just way more contagious than we ever thought.
Yes. And you're right. The key is that they are all together in the same space for a prolonged period of time. And that's the key, because you could just as easily pick up the virus at the store, on an airplane, at a hotel, pretty much anywhere you're around other people, but you're not going to know it until days later. And if this person tested negative initially and then tested positive, that likely means they picked it up somewhere on the way to the ship and just weren't necessarily showing symptoms, rather than picking it up on the ship. Cruise lines for years have gotten an unfair reputation as being virus spreaders, and they provide the environment, but so do a lot of other places.
Well, what you don't see is also, who is this person? What are they doing? Are they extremely careful? Or are they just going out there and not washing their hands, not doing the stuff, and just, so the media will of course never report that, but that's a very important element too. And some people are more susceptible to catching stuff than others. And I'll quote Paul Feinbaum, who is the top college football reporter in the country. And he said, he was talking about college football yesterday. He said, just because someone gets coronavirus, doesn't mean they're going to die. Your chances are, higher to get hit by a bus than dying of it. So just catching it in itself, there are going to be a lot of people that have it, but just catching it itself is not necessarily something to get all hyped up about. It's, the serious cases, and it's any hospitalizations, pre-existing conditions. So there's this media hype about cases, versus, actual serious stuff. I'm not taking it lightly, but I'm just pointing out that, the media likes to throw out numbers and make sensationalist stuff, and it may not necessarily apply. It doesn't apply in every case.
The problem, though, is, and you're right, not everybody, is going to get severely sick or even have any symptoms. But the problem is if you do get it, Kevin, let's say you get it, and you go and visit somebody who may not tell you, hey, Kevin, you need to stay away because I have an underlying condition. You're putting that person at risk, or just by coming in contact with them. Because, honestly, right now, the thing where we're at is 70% of the people that are getting coronavirus, 70% of them are having heart issues afterward, which is definitely
I didn't know that, but if I got it, then, you need to have discipline and you need to self-quarantine if you get it. That's what you need to do.
That's true.
Just for that very reason, because you don't want to infect others.
I think the temperature taking is stupid, honestly, because I think you can spread it before you have a temperature. And all these people that have invested in all this equipment for cruise ships, schools, anything else, these people are not, we've heard the cruise lines say they're taking temperatures. Before you get on a ship, you might have your temperature taken 4 times and you're okay. So there's a lot we don't know about this virus, but at the same time, one of the whole rant with it is that I think it's actually helping us learn more about the virus since we've opened up some of these, that, hey, it is a little bit more contagious. And you're right, Kevin, you may not get sick, but it's a lot more contagious than what we I think, that we even thought.
Well, and it's also interesting. We probably should switch subject a little bit and
Thank you.
to ask us questions about what what are your questions as a new cruiser. But I'll leave you with this one is the fact that the cases that are coming out are at all different stratifications of cruising. You have ships like the Wilderness Adventurer who had, I think they were sailing with 30 or 40 passengers as opposed to 60, and they had an issue. You have Ida Perla, which I don't know what their capacity they were planning to sail with, but had 10 crew that were tested positive right before they got on the ship. And so you're seeing stuff at the full size. I think Perla is max capacity is like 3,000 passengers normally, and they're probably sailing with close to 800 to 1,000, I'm guessing. But it's something that we're going to have to deal with, not just now, but something ongoing. So any kind of lessons and learnings we can get today are ultimately going to allow us to both advance mitigation efforts, but also simply understand that this is not something that we can just wear a mask and wash your hands on, but it's going to be something that we're going to have to deal with for at least the next 2 or 3 years, even after there's a vaccine.
One quick thing, James, is your mic, does he sound really soft to you guys too?
He sounded a little subdued, unlike his normal bold self, but no.
Because
I was thinking the subject you're talking about something depressing rather than exciting of going on a cruise. That's all.
No, he just, to me, it sounded very quiet. Like everyone else sounds loud, so I didn't know if it was his mic or something, but
well, I think part of the thing is I may not be as boisterous talking about COVID-19.
I think he sounds fine.
But thank you, Heather, for worrying about me.
Your little echo is gone though, so
That's
so the
good.
sound is
I
improved.
did move the mic closer to me than I was before.
That's good.
Anyhow,
And you have your captain's hat on too. I see that.
So anyhow, definitely, I think it may be a good idea to have a COVID episode at some point. That sounds weird, have a COVID episode, but there's definitely a lot of conversation topics that we could have talking about this, and certainly it's going to be something that at this point I don't know if we should be afraid of it as such, but certainly something that we should be planning and having new cruisers better understand. What are the risks, and is your risk tolerance such that you're willing to take it on? I mean, for someone like myself, clearly I'm not the thinnest, most in shape kind of guy. I'm in my 40s. I certainly have more risk than, say, an 18-year-old guy on a football team in high school. But that being said, I know guys in their 60s that still are playing golf and slapping their buddies on the back in the locker rooms without caring. So, figure out what your risk is and go for it. But I think that would be an interesting topic to discuss without being sensational, because certainly there's a lot of stuff that's being blown up that on both sides, whether it's telling people that they have to wear a mask, if you don't you're evil, to people saying I'm not going to wear a mask because it's it's a muzzle, and like
My cruising mask.
both
Actually,
both sides of that argument have their flaws, but this is something that we're going to have to deal with, and certainly cruising will be back. And I don't see a situation where just because we have these cases, it's going to shut down forever. But I'd be lying in saying if I didn't think it was a setback.
aren't cruises bookings up
Yeah.
tremendously, Heather, from for 2021? Aren't they like setting records now?
Well, personally, on my side, I've just moved people over to next year.
Okay. People who want to cruise, from what I know, people that want to cruise are going to cruise.
Yes,
if they have to
don't
wait
care.
6 months or something, because there are so many people that just love to be on a cruise ship and miss it, and they're going to go, and then whenever they can go. I do know that. That's
And the prices are phenomenal right now. I just looked at I think it was a celebrity ship. Get this, and maybe Ashley Ashley K can fly down to Fort Lauderdale and then meet us in San Diego. $900 per person for a 15-day Fort Lauderdale to San Diego cruise. Full
Fort Lauderdale to San Diego.
full
Really?
Panama Canal transit.
Wow, that would be worth it
For
along the Panama
$100,000.
Canal.
That is a bucket list itinerary as well. The Panama Canal. That is such a neat thing to do.
That would be something I would like
so
to see
that's a
sometime,
steal.
to go through the Panama Canal. That has to
Yes.
be just an incredible experience. It's actually, most of it is actually along a river, as I understand. It's actually not, you're not the whole time going through the locks and stuff.
Well, there's the river, and then there's the big lake that I can't remember the name of, but and the locks connect those two. There's ditches also, but
Yes. And I think people don't realize either that it's not a quick process. It takes hours. Like they start the process at, I think it's before sunrise. So I think I got up at like 4:30 in the morning to get a good spot out on deck. And it takes hours to go through the locks because it's so slow, but it's a really cool, like if you're into engineering at all, it's just really neat the way it works.
I will say from a price standpoint, at least from what I've noticed before all this happened, the Panama Canal cruises are not necessarily, are actually, I should say, a little bit cheaper than what you would think. And that's because you're starting in one spot and ending in another. So you don't have that round trip kind of thing, and you have to get a different plane to get back home. I mean, for us in San Diego, it would be great because we just have to fly one direction.
Mm-hmm.
And then walk home.
I mean, in normal times, you can get a direct from San Diego to MIA for like $300. So
less than that.
yeah. Well, actually, that was a round trip we did last year
too,
for $300.
so.
Well, if I go to Fort Lauderdale, I'm going to be spending some time in one of the great dive bars in America, the Elbow Room, ELBO Room.
There's
Right
a lot
there.
of great stuff in Fort Lauderdale. I enjoyed my visit there.
I like the
Lauderdale's
tiki
cool.
bar that's there.
That was fun.
Fort Lauderdale's cool.
Before we move on, there was one little bit of news that came out this morning that I forgot to mention, and I hate to bring it back to COVID again, but CLIA, which is the governing body for most of the major cruise lines, just announced today that they are voluntarily pushing their projected restart date to October 31st.
Yes.
It had previously been the end of September. So it's been pushed back another month, and I still don't anticipate that being the actual restart date either. I think it'll be Q1 of next year at the earliest, but just wanted to throw that out there since that just came in.
Is World's Leading Cruise Line, which for those of you non-nerds, is Carnival, Princess, Holland America, etc. Are they basically in lockstep now with CLIA, that whatever CLIA says, they're just following?
Well, any CLIA, any CLIA member line. So that would be like the lines that are owned by Carnival Corporation, which are Carnival, Holland America, Princess, Cunard, Azamara. I'm sorry, that's a Royal brand. And then the Royal Caribbean brands. No, sorry, which are Royal Caribbean, Celebrity, Azamara, and some of the luxury lines.
MSC, not CLIA.
MSC is. I'm sorry. Norwegian is. I'm actually not sure about MSC.
I can't talk MSC is. Let me look.
But anyhow, for those of you who are not experts like Ashley K, so basically, it's all of it's the entire cruise industry from American brands, for big ship brands. Is that, and they're all agreed to follow that guidance then? Yeah,
there are a couple I think that are not. I'm not sure. They're the mainstream ones, the ones that you're really familiar with.
Oh yeah, MSC is Sea Dream Yacht Club, which had a coronavirus case.
Is Disney on there?
Disney is, I think it is. Yes, Disney, Cunard, Crystal, Costa, Celestial, American Cruise Lines, Azamara, Carnival, Celebrity, Holland America, Norwegian, Mystic, Regent, Princess, Ponant.
Hey, Harry.
Silver Sea, Windstar, yeah.
And Harry, I'm guessing that was a response to my my road trip, or my flying out to Fort Lauderdale. You know, a road trip back would be awesome. That would be a great road trip.
Yeah, a long road trip. I have actually been to 2 or 3 of the I didn't know you called it CLIA, CLIA press events in Los Angeles, and met with all the marketing reps of those cruise lines. And I walked away both times thinking, I'm getting all these free cruises. This will be great. And not one of them followed up with me.
Aww.
So I'm like, good talkers, but it's the follow-up that counts. So I got real excited twice. And then kind of disappointed. But I did go to 2 of their events, so I have not been on a cruise, but I've been dangling carrots on cruises.
Well, what questions do you have? What's your biggest question right now?
My biggest question about cruises, the reason I've never taken one, is a perception I have, reality or not, is it's a bunch of gray-haired people I don't want to hang out with. I don't want to be stuck on a cruise ship, for 5 days, 10 days or whatever, with a bunch of people I don't want to hang out with. I want young, fun, single-party people. And I just, my perception is that that's not the case.
I would say that depending on what cruise line you're on, that may be the case, or it may not be the case. Certainly, what do you call it? The Norwegian Sky ships out of Miami that go to Bahamas for 3 days, absolutely not the case. There will be some older people that like to have fun, like myself and Heather as well. People far in excess of our.
I would go with you guys.
But I think what I would recommend for you as a first cruise is absolutely checking out Carnival Radiance when it comes in April into Long Beach. Radiance is a Destiny class ship that just got completely overhauled, or is in the process of being overhauled. I think a $200 million update or something like that, and it'll essentially be the newest ship in the Carnival fleet. That's coming to Long Beach, replacing the 2 fantasy class ships, which I like the fantasy class ships. I think fantasy class ships were fantastic for what they were, as essentially as booze cruises. But now you can still do the 3 and 4 day itineraries out of Long Beach to go to Ensenada and either San Diego or to Catalina. But you're going to get the steakhouse. You're going to get the what's the new one? Is it Big Chicken? Shaq's new restaurant.
Shaq is
Shaq. It's called
Shaq
Miss Free Throws.
Oh,
What's it called?
Miss Free Throws.
Oh.
But I would even say a 7-day Caribbean. I mean, if you just do east or west, with your typical 3 stops, on the 3 major cruise lines, I would say Carnival, Royal, Norwegian, it's going to be a little bit more of a party atmosphere than if you were to go on Holland America or do like a Southern Caribbean trip, the regular.
Yeah, Kevin, I would definitely not recommend you go on Crystal or Seabourn. and I'm laughing because honestly, Crystal is absolutely on my bucket list. We had a great experience in a ship tour of Crystal in January, but it's not going to be.
Their house wine is excellent, like amazing.
But you're not going to walk around being like, "Woohoo! Party time! Where's the bar?"
Cruise lines are very much like people. They all have personalities, and even within a line, you can have some ships that have different vibes depending on their age, their size, and where they go. But I think if you're really looking for a party atmosphere, like James touched on, you're going to get that on a shorter cruise. If you are, you're probably going to get that more like during spring break time, depending on,
that's a big tip. That's an important tip. Okay.
Yeah. Depending on, where you want to go. I mean, if you're looking more to be on board with active people versus maybe like people who just want to binge drink all day, which is fine too, you could pick an itinerary like Alaska, where, the ship might not be as exciting, but you're going to find some really cool excursions that'll keep you active. You can do 9-mile hikes up the side of a mountain. You can, go visit glaciers. I mean, it's, there's kayaking, stuff that'll keep you moving. So it just really depends what you're looking for. But the keys are, where's it going, for how long, and, what time of year is it?
I do know that in Miami they have
happening a lot in the small ship cruises too. Like you have. And obviously that's a whole different market. We were paying like $8,000 or $5,000 for 8 to 10 days, but you have Hurtigruten and what do you call it? Natural Geographic that are going after like the Polar Explorer guys who want to strap on their backpack and climb up mountains. But then you're getting to places like Atlas Ocean Voyages. Just give a plug for you, Harry. But that they're going after the guys like, hey, what? I still want to have fun. I still want to go out there and adventure, but I'm going to go skydive and then we're going to do a trip to Chernobyl. And so, really, the nice thing is there's so many different options. But when you look, don't just assume, okay, Carnival's my guy, or conversely that Holland America is not my line, because a Holland America cruise out of Miami or Fort Lauderdale to the Caribbean is going to be a vastly different experience than, say, a Holland America trip to Alaska.
Yes.
And now another thing that people do is, and this is how we started cruising and met a lot of people, was on Cruise Critics message boards. They, there'll be, people going on this cruise, and people will join that and talk to one another and plan meetups. And one of the big things you find out is some people will cruise a certain ship just because they know who the cruise director is going to be, and they think that cruise director is more fun. Or if there's a great piano bar player on that ship that's fun, they will go to that. Now, I know I've planned a cruise based on a piano bar guy because some of them are pretty tame, and I want the person that's going to be raunchy at night, So, it all depends on what you like. And, people plan them based on their friends going, of course, too. So there's all those things. People, once you go on one cruise, you start to think, hey, that cruise director was great, because they move ships quite a bit. So if you don't like that cruise director, make sure you look to see on the schedule, hey, I don't want to go on that ship now because I heard this one was on there. So there's
I think
stuff like
that
that.
can be pretty overwhelming for new cruisers. Like, now they're thinking, oh my God, I thought it was just easy to pick a 5-day cruise.
Well, no, I'm saying after their first
but
cruise.
I think one of the things that this is a great reason why a travel advisor can help you out is that those kind of things are exactly what Heather already knows. Where Kevin, you're like, hey, I have $1,000. I want to go to someplace warm and tropical with some great drinks for a week, and I want to hang out with people who also like to party and do cool stuff. Heather's like, hey, I got the perfect place for you.
Well, I have a follow-up question regarding cocktails on the ships. But Ashley, why don't you jump in, and what's your question about cruising?
Ashley S.
Yeah,
Ashley S.
me. Hi.
How about Ashley?
Oh gosh, honestly, I've never been on one. I've always wanted to. Just don't really know what's the best bang for my buck. Are all of them inclusive, or like some of them inclusive? Is it better to find a place that goes to cool destinations but isn't inclusive? Or I don't have any idea how to ask questions about this.
I think it depends on what your primary goal is. Do you
Yeah.
want to go to St. Thomas or Cozumel? I'm just using the Caribbean as an example.
Well,
or do you want to sit and just drink all day on the ship?
Yeah, I definitely want to go to places I've never been. I've been to St. Thomas, but it's gorgeous. I definitely want to go back there. Never been to Cozumel, but there's I want to get on a cruise that has a bunch of destinations I haven't been to, and I just want to know if those are very, the older crowds is are we gonna have fun? So it seems.
There's every age group on a cruise ship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never been on a cruise where I haven't had fun.
Okay, it's a good thing.
So as a general rule of thumb, most cruises are not all inclusive unless you book the higher tier lines like Crystal, and even some of the luxury lines aren't all inclusive, but the ones we consider luxury are like Crystal, Seabourn, Silver Sea, Regent, Oceania. Some of the ones that I guess maybe fewer people have heard of, they're going to cost you more, but the service is going to be a little better. You'll probably get a slightly smaller ship, so it's a more intimate experience, and a lot more things will be included. But if you're talking about like a Royal Caribbean or a Carnival or a Norwegian, it will include your accommodation, so whatever cabin type you book. It'll include your breakfast, lunch, and dinner, generally in the buffet and a main dining room, which will on most ships you can choose either set seating, where you go at a set time every night, you sit at the same table. You may end up sharing a table with complete strangers, which is fun. You get the same waiter.
I was just going to say, you can do your time dining too. You don't have to sit.
Okay.
Or your time dining, where they'll give you, you can dine between. I think it's usually 5 and 9 p.m. and you can make a reservation, or you can just show up. You'll sit at whatever table is available. You may or may not end up sharing. You don't have to. You can request not to. So there's options there. Most ships do have alternative dining that will cost you a little extra. A lot of the newer ships that have all the fun stuff like the go-karts and the virtual reality rooms and things like that will cost you extra. But nightly entertainment is generally included. All the daytime activities like, bingo, trivia, the dance parties, that kind of stuff. So it is definitely, even if it's not all inclusive, it is definitely a better value than if you were to book individual trips to each of the ports that the ship visits. So I guess for someone like you, Ashley, who is interested in going to places you've never been, I would look at the itinerary first. If it's a popular destination like the Caribbean, you have your pick of ships. I mean, there's a ton. So after you choose your destination, you can narrow it down from there to which ship has the activities that you're looking for. And also on a lot of the mainstream lines, they have upper end suites you can book, and some of them are more inclusive. So they might throw in free internet access, free drink packages. So you'll be paying more for your room, but you'll be getting more for your money.
How much do the drinks usually range in cost wise on a cruise?
They're about, really, they're just about the same they are anywhere else.
I would say probably 15-20% more expensive, but I think that's one of.
It's like California prices, or
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Like New York City prices.
They're closer to California and New York City prices, and that's why I say, like when we were in Chicago, for instance, I can get a beer, almost any bar in Chicago for $5.
Mm-hmm.
But here in San Diego, $5 is a happy hour price.
Right. Yeah.
And
Well, let me just point out, you can get in the gas lamp. There are several places. If you order a can or bottle non-draft beer, you can get them sometimes for $3 and $4 at most places in the gas lamp.
And certainly there's those options too. But I'm saying,
but we're comparing prices to like what we're used to. Yeah.
Yeah. I know that.
One of the things too, though, as far as the non-inclusive issue, is the fact that from a marketing perspective, many of the cruise lines, specifically Norwegian, but I've seen Princess and Celebrity also edging towards this, where they're packaging things to make it look more inclusive. So, for instance, the Free at Sea program, which is absolutely fantastic on Norwegian, and I have less experience with the other two lines, but you're ultimately still paying for it. So, for instance, when Heather and I booked a cruise last November on Norwegian, the rate was, I don't know the exact rate, but let's say the rate was advertised as starting at $270. Well, that $270 rate didn't include the features, but at $300 or $325, it included the free drink package. Okay, so right there you have an extra $50, per for the cruise, so that works out to be $15 per day. Not a big deal. However, when you do that, you automatically get dinged for another $50-$60 for the tips, which absolutely always tip your bartender. But now you're paying $25-$30 a day, for your drink package.
But I will jump in and say most cruise lines, if you can opt to buy an all-inclusive beverage package before you sail, if there's not an option where it's included in the price. Yeah. And that usually runs about $50 per day. So you are getting a significant savings. And where they get you is it has to be for everyone in your cabin. So if you're sailing with your spouse, for example, if you drink and your spouse doesn't, too bad. Both of you are going to be paying $50 per person per day. Because what'll happen is they were having cases where one person would book it and then would just go get free drinks and give them to the people they were cruising with. So the cruise line was losing out on money.
That makes sense.
And I will point out,
down for that.
I know that we are very concerned about alcoholic beverages because that's where it's at. But the one thing that's really shocked me on my very first cruise before I started working in the industry is that soda is not included either. A lot of the drinks that you might expect would be included with your meals and stuff are not. So you're looking at pretty much water, iced tea, lemonade, and maybe some tea or coffee in the buffet. So if you are someone who drinks a lot of juices, a lot of sodas, they do have just a soda package if that's something you're interested in. If you're not someone who likes alcohol, generally the all-inclusive alcohol packages include soda and bottled water and stuff like that. But it is really a shocker for a lot of people.
So bottled water isn't included?
No.
Mm-mm. Tap water tap water on cruise ships is fine to drink. It's completely potable. They filter it on board. It's a very complicated system, but every ship has its own water purification system on board, and it is safe to drink. It's safe to brush your teeth with.
now you
So
started the
basically,
Holy
I'm
War between
buying the
Heather and I.
alcohol package. Done. All right.
Well, I actually have a
Well,
drink package
it is-
question, but go ahead.
I was going to say it varies. I mean, Carnival starts at $59.99, and
Oh,
Royal Caribbean goes up to $84.99, I believe.
Wow.
And like I said, each person has to do that.
but
Purchase it.
my roommate went on a cruise, and she consulted the expert on cocktails, me. By the way, I'm trying to reposition like my shirt, the sspubclub.com.
Oh, that's cool.
When I went sailing in the BVI's, part of the Interline Regatta, and there was limitless cocktails there. But anyway, so she was asking me about the drink package. Should they get the $50 a day drink package? And I said, well, I got many questions for you because I don't know. I don't know how many drinks does it include? For what hours? Does it start at midnight or midnight to midnight? What about, is it just the low grade Coors Light and the crappy tequila, or is it the middle stuff, high end? So I had many questions about a drink package before I would, even consider spending $50 a day on it, because I want to know the parameters. What if it's, 9 o'clock and we're rocking and rolling, and all of a sudden, my drink package runs out. So I'm still going to spend more on extra drink. So, right? Actually, she knows.
Most
I don't
of
know
them
between the two of us, right?
like the vodka is Absolute, Belvedere, Grey Goose, Stoli, Tito's, rum, Bacardi, Captain Morgan, Malibu.
Wait a minute. Okay. Low grade
So
rum.
it sounds
Unless
good.
it's Bacardi, good stuff. But the regular Bacardi.
Bacardi 8.
Yeah, with the
Yeah,
exception of
it-
like
You got him and his rum. Can you bring your own booze?
No.
That's another follow-up
You
You
question.
cannot bring your own.
That
One
was gonna
bottle,
be my next
supposedly.
You are
question.
not-
But
Yeah,
you
you
know
could-
what you can do? Here's where
Buy
I was going, is you can purchase it to be in your room when you get there.
Okay.
So it costs more. It used to be better because we used to do this. We used to purchase rum and Chambord, and it would be in the room when we got there. So you can use that at any time. And the one thing that Carnival has that a lot of people like is they have a passion fruit juice. So in the morning, you'll see everybody go get tons of passion fruit juice so they can mix it with rum throughout the day.
Yeah.
Well, what
Yeah.
if I'm in the Caribbean and
You-
I'm St. Thomas and I go in the liquor store and I get me a bottle of cruising 2-year-old dark, my basic rum or something nicer, and $5 or $10, and what's the
They
stop?
confiscate it when you come
You
back
can,
on.
yeah.
They
You can
confiscate it.
you can down the whole thing in port before you get back on board if you want to. But if you
Well,
come
that's
back
not
on
the
board
point.
with
You
it,
can't buy
Yeah.
souvenir alcohol though. So there's
You
not-
can.
No, you
They have
can't.
free?
they have
Oh,
duty
okay.
free on board, but they'll
Okay.
keep it until the last night of the cruise, and they'll check it for you under your name, and then it gets delivered to your cabin the night before you disembark. So you can go ham on that last night of the cruise if you want, but just make sure you don't miss your flight the next morning.
That being said, there are a
I'll just
lot of
take the
ways
next
to pretty successfully sneak alcohol onto the cruise ships. And for a few cruises, not in the past, because now I am a fine, upstanding young man who loves working with the cruise lines and encouraging people to only follow the directions and the rules so they invite me back in the future. Okay, and with that being said, in
Real
the
talk
past,
now.
in the past, it's really not that difficult. Like for instance, I one of the cruise lines one of the cruises that I thought was just the most blatantly easy to do was in the port in San Juan. There's a liquor checker guy before you get onto the cruise ship, and as you're walking down the gangplank, you're supposed to "Oh, sir, you need to surrender your alcohol." And I just saw people look at him, go "No," and just keep walking. The guy's like, "Yeah."
Wow.
And another trick too that worked pretty successfully. Inadvertently, I did not intend to make it work this way, but what happened is we had 2 bags, and the person that at the security station said, "Oh, raise your hands." Letting the person that was going to confiscate the alcohol know there was alcohol in it. Well, basically, one bag went through and we returned it. One bag, we just kept going and we didn't even think about it. So it's kind of one of those decoy methods. But nonetheless, there's a lot of ways you can get around that. But honestly, the experience of sitting there in your cabin, sneaking a hooch, is fun for the first few times when you're like, "Oh, dude, can we do this?" Or if you're 22 years old and you can't afford the alcohol. But seriously, the cruise lines have great bars. And the drinks are really, really good, and they work really hard to deliver a great experience. So, don't be a dick. It's just
Right,
it's
right.
not.
I'm just saying, sitting around by the
absolutely
pool
caught
or
up.
something to take your own drink out there. But
Well,
Well, I'll
But
let Ashley go quick.
does your drink package include all the bars if you get a drink package?
It does, but it goes up to a certain cost. Each cruise line's different. Like Carnival's only goes to $9 drinks, I believe.
You can buy higher tiers though, I think.
Do you
And
only
Royal
get a
Caribbean goes to $15, and then you'd have to pay extra based on that.
I also think they cut you off at a certain number of drinks per day. I want to say
That was one of my
ask?
that was one of my
Sorry.
questions. Is how many drinks a day do you get? I mean, because you
Yeah.
know, if you're like,
15.
you know, and at what
15
time does
is
it
a
end at
lot of
midnight?
drinks.
Does it end at midnight, or
But it's
and
not
then
really
the
that
next
many
day
drinks
kicks
if you
in?
think about it.
Honestly, I hate that is one thing that I'm not a big fan of these packages, because people buy the package and they're like, oh, I can do 15 a day. I got to get my money's worth. So you
Yeah.
sit there and then you have somebody at night that's sloshed and barely can walk, and they're wrecking the
Well,
environment for everyone else.
Anyone, you know, come on, you know, my point of all this is to have a cocktail and have a good time and meet and mingle and not sit there and get soused all day. You know, that's just not that's not my point. It's a part, to me, a drink is a social tool to help,
Exactly.
you know, enhance the environment. It's not like, look, if I want to sit here and drink, I've got I'm sitting at a tiki bar with an entire liquor cabinet, halfway thanks to James, full of booze. If I really wanted to do that, it'd be really easy to do. And I'm not going to waste.
No. I'm just saying,
on a cruise ship. I know some do, but you know, that's.
it has become a problem, actually.
I'm sure that some do, but probably, you know, bars are getting hammered now when this COVID stuff goes, you know, but most people, 90-something%, 95% of the people just want to go out and have a good time and not get soused. But I understand
15, yeah.
I understand
15 drinks is a lot of drinks in a day.
Well, 15 drinks is pretty substantial, yeah. And
Especially
do they
if you're
carry
doing it
over?
for
If you
5
have
or
like
7
seven
days in a row.
Every day.
That's ambitious.
Yeah.
But the thing is if it's a water and a soda and then
Oh,
alcohol.
no, those don't count.
They
Yeah, they
don't?
cut you off. No, they
Beverage.
cut you off at 15 alcoholic drinks.
Oh, okay.
You
Because I
can
was
have as
like,
many
this is
water-
counting my orange juice and my water, you know.
Sorry.
So what have you had?
But
What
if
if
your
you have
water,
10 one
if your
day?
water has gin in it,
I
and
mean,
orange
right.
juice has vodka in it.
As a side note here, you
Does it
can.
roll over like minutes on your cell phone? You know,
No, it doesn't roll
you have 10 one day, you get 20 the next.
Welcome to the 5th
Oh
day
my
of your
gosh,
cruise. You now have
Kevin.
27 drinks today.
What
Kevin,
these are
you better
questions that people
you better
ask.
wake up.
These are questions that pub clubbers will ask me, and I need to provide the answers.
And is there like
And,
a doctor on board to pump your stomach?
Yes,
and
there is.
stuff?
And then what if, you know, there's pretty girls like Ashley on, and you know, I'm at, you know, and I want to buy them a drink. So you have to keep all this in mind. 15 drinks may not just be for me.
Oh,
They
yeah.
won't-
I don't
you
think you
can't-
can do that.
They won't. They
All
won't let you buy
bartenders
other
have the
people.
right to
drinks.
not serve you.
They won't let you buy other
You
people
can buy
drinks?
it and then like go around the corner and be like,
What? You can't buy
I
other
have
people
been on
drinks?
a
I mean, people do
I
it.
have been
but-
on a ship where they actually took somebody's sign and sale card, which you could go purchase the alcohol, and just gave them where they can't get anything. It's just to get into their room. And the person was at the comedian and said to the comedian, stood up in front of everyone and said, "Will you get me a drink? They won't let me have any more drinks today. They said I'm cut off, but I've been asking people and they've been getting me a drink." And the
Oh my
comedian's
God.
like, "Do you think I'm going to get you a drink? They're paying me to be here. I don't want to get in trouble."
Yeah.
But yeah, so actually they will take it. And that guy was so
Well, why is that? Why can't you buy someone a drink? That seems silly to me.
Because the cruise
Because-
line had said you were no longer
he was
allowed
cut
to.
off.
But
I'm sorry.
also, you've paid for your alcohol package. It's so that they can make more money. That's one of the reasons why if you're cruising with someone, if you get the alcohol package, the people of adult age in your cabin also have to purchase it, even if they're not going to be drinking.
So if I didn't know Ashley and I see her pretty girl sitting at a bar or by the pool, I can't go up and say, you know, let me buy you a drink. You can't do that.
you can. You just have to pay extra.
Yeah, or I mean, people do it anyway. You can, I believe there's a limit of 2 drinks at a time. So you could walk up to the bar, order 2 drinks, pretend they're both for you, and then walk around the corner and give it to Ashley.
There you go.
But
But you
technically,
have
you're-
to,
Don't do it 30 times a day.
right?
what
I mean,
yeah.
But what I was talking about, Kevin, was that part, that guy was cut off and no one was supposed to get him drinks at that point.
good. Well, good. No one should, you know, if he's cut off
Yeah.
you know, for being a
But
stupid alcoholic.
he was getting drinks. The other last thing with the alcohol part that you can do on most cruise lines is each person can bring a bottle of alcohol or a bottle of wine into their room with them.
Harry, I love you. I'm glad.
always
on,
good
Harrison,
advice, Harry.
please. Jeez.
Harrison, have you had a bad experience with that?
Oh,
So, like Carnival and Royal, you can bring a bottle of wine on board with you.
No rum?
Okay.
Just wine.
fine, but they'll usually charge
what
you
about
a corkage fee.
But
Yes, or champagne.
I think Norwegian does that, but Carnival and Royal don't still, do they?
The corkage fee, if you drink it in the dining room, I think.
Oh, we pour it before we go in.
Yeah,
we get glasses in.
It's like buying a car, you get the basic
bottle.
model, then it costs you extra for tires, it costs extra for you want air conditioning, you want this, you want the sunroof, so everything's an add-on. So the actual
But look at the price you're paying for your cruise on on the big ships we're talking about.
And you get all the food free, right? You get all the food free, right?
Oh, except for if you want to do
lunch and
specially dining.
Okay.
Yeah, and the buffets are open pretty much not 24/7, but most of the day. So if you're feeling hungry between meals, you can go and grab snacks. And I mean, a lot of the higher end alternative dining will cost extra. Like they have steakhouses on pretty much all ships. A lot of them offer Asian. There's usually an Italian venue. You can get some really crazy stuff. There's one that projects images onto your table while you're eating of a tiny little chef who prepares each course as you're watching. And then it comes out.
Celebrity?
That is Le Petit Chef on some of the celebrity ships.
Awesome.
A lot of quirky, like they have dinner theater on some of the ships. I think Norwegian has those. I think MSC might have some as well. You need reservations. It'll cost you extra. But there's options. The fun stuff is usually a little more
you know what I would kill for? I don't even like pizza, but I love the 24-hour pizza pirate on Carnival.
Yes.
Like Carnival gets shit on a lot for it's Carnival, I don't want to go there. But the reality is Carnival does a damn good job of just doing basic stuff. Like
the food's amazing.
What's more important? Like I don't need Chateaubriand, and by the way, their Chateaubriands are actually really good. But I don't need that. I don't necessarily need the fanciest cocktail out there, and I don't necessarily need all this foo-foo stuff. But get me some damn good fried chicken, an awesome hanger steak, some good
burgers,
barbecue, a fantastic burger, burritos. I mean, Carnival does a really good job, and I'm getting really hungry right now.
I love their steakhouse. They have the best ribeye of all the of all the cruise lines I've been on.
Well, now I'm hungry.
What about exercising? Because I like to run, particularly.
Oh yeah, there's
every ship has like a quarter mile or it wouldn't be a half mile, but like a quarter mile
track.
Most of them do. Yeah. Most of them. Basketball courts. They've got fitness facilities with treadmills and ellipticals and weight machines, and usually they have classes you can sign up for. They tend to cost extra, but they might do like a stretching class for free in the morning. There's usually some form of like spin or like some will offer Pilates or TRX classes, and I mean the stuff gets crazy at times with what they do. And there's a spa usually somewhere near the fitness center where you can get massages.
I suppose if you're all day on a excursion, you could go for a run at the at the port, and then
I'll tell you what. Some people always talk about like how they gain weight on cruises. I actually lose weight on cruises because I am so ADD and want to go do everything on the cruise ship. Yeah. So I'm running from one end of the ship to the other end to that constantly all day. So you're getting quite a workout most of the time on the ship. And at night, you're like, wow, I'm tired. If you take the stairs, you're extra added bonus.
I have another question about cruise ships. Another reason I haven't done it is I know they're gigantic, but I would think after 3 or 4 days, or if I'm doing a 5-day or more cruise, I'd almost feel claustrophobic because they're huge, but they're still confined. I've been on the Queen Mary many, many times, and as big as classic as that ship is, it's pretty small after a short amount of time.
You mean Queen Mary?
I'm sorry?
The Queen Mary, the hotel. You're
talking
about
the hotel. I've been on press events. I've been all sorts of stuff in Queen Mary. But still, it's and she's grand. She's luxurious. She's was in her day and all this stuff. But
she was an ocean liner as opposed to a
cruise
ship.
Right. Keep in mind she's much smaller. Yeah. She's much smaller than today's ships, and there's pretty much a pool and like a dance hall on that ship, and that's it. I mean, we're talking You've got bumper cars, zip lines, mini golf courses, basketball courts. You've got multiple theaters, tons of venues where they have comedians and magicians and bingo, and they'll show movies on the
Wow.
pool deck, and they'll do belly flop contests. And you've got the gym to work out, and there's kids clubs for the kids to go to, and there's bars, and just I have never. The longest I was ever on a ship was 14 days. I was not bored. And I'm a pretty active
I'm not
person.
saying bored. I'm just saying claustrophobic because you have a small amount of space. I like to get out and,
Well, I mean, you're not going to stay. Trust me. I said this, I think, last week. People always worry about their rooms, like being so small or that. Honestly, you're never going to be in your rooms but to sleep.
I don't care about that.
Otherwise, you shouldn't feel claustrophobic. You have so many places to go and do. Now, if you're doing one of the smaller cruise ships, I still don't feel that you're going to feel claustrophobic because there's always something to do. And
outdoors as well.
Your mind is not going to be set. Like if you took Viking Ocean, which is a smaller cruise ship, there's still things to do and places to go and sit. And I mean, they have a gorgeous, pool infinity pool out the back. I mean, they have some great things. And Seabourn has where they lower the back and you can go swimming right off the back of the ship. I mean, just so everybody different sizes, unless you've got to try it once, because that's what I thought. I thought it was going to be boring and very restrictive the first time I went, and I had a blast. It wasn't the greatest cruise ship, but it was a good time.
I will say.
I was going to do to Kevin's point about the Queen Mary. I just looked up because I love numbers. So the Queen Mary was about 80,000 gross tons. Carnival Radiance, which is now one of the smallest ships in Carnival's fleet, is approximately 102,000 gross tons. Queen Mary actually had a passenger capacity of about 200 more people. And so if you look at that, combined with the fact that the Queen Mary also had a lot of cargo and a lot of mail storage space, you start realizing that the bulk of that was dedicated to cabins, whereas there's a lot of stuff that's designed so that you don't always crowd in the same places on the modern ships. And certainly when you start getting into things like the Oasis class ships, which are absolutely amazing, you start having a lot of outdoor spaces, even though you have apartment building, well, not apartment building, but the cabin. But I'm saying on that ship they are apartment buildings. And then the ship in back of you has, I think that one has grass on the top deck, so you can even do stuff like having lawn bowling and that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of design issues that extend the openness even beyond the purely gross tonnage.
Well, if you give me 5 minutes, I've got a picture of the modern cruise line backed up with a T at the Queen Mary, and you can see the size differences in them. It's huge. I mean, the other ones are a lot more decks than the Queen Mary. I will say the Queen Mary, though, the design is classic. All cruise ships to me look exactly the same, all that white, kind of like cars now. Back in the 50s and 60s, they all had this nice character. But the Queen Mary certainly has it's got a great, she's got a great character, to her. But I've seen the cruise ships backed up to it. I've even been on the cruise ships by the Queen Mary, but I never actually went sailed on them. They kicked me off on press events, before it left the port. So I've been on the cruise ship. I have been on the cruise ship. I don't think
Queen Mary's permanently docked there.
The Queen Mary,
it is.
She's not going anywhere because
it can't sail anymore. I think it only still has one propeller intact, and it's not seaworthy.
She's also
It is. It is.
Yeah, she's not seaworthy at all. And they're figuring out trying to do what they're, and of course the maintenance on that ship is just, the cost is tremendous.
It's heartbreaking. It's hemorrhaging money apparently, and they're trying to figure out if they can save it and keep it sustainable.
That's been going on for the last 20 years.
No,
they are trying to figure out what to do with it.
Side note: I spent a night on that ship. Actually, I think it was right after Norwegian Joy, guys. That ended in LA, right?
Last March.
I spent a night on board, and it is absolutely haunted. you are.
Oh, you saw a goat?
Right about that.
You saw a
I
goat?
didn't see one, but I was in my room and someone knocked on the door. And when I answered it, no one was there. There was no one in the hallway. There was no one. It was the creepiest thing. Norwegian
I
joy.
was hoping to be like scared. I went there for like the Halloween. I went there for drinks one time up there, and then like they do like a Halloween thing on the Queen Mary. But yeah, no hauntings. I was looking forward to it. No.
If you're in LA and taking a cruise, actually one thing you should do is it's expensive. It's like $27 to walk on board, but the one thing you should do is go on the Queen, and if you can take the tour with Emmett, who's the sort of unofficial captain, and he'll go around and he'll tell you stories about the Queen Mary and when she was a World War troop ship. So if you're taking a cruise out of Long Beach, I highly recommend going on the Queen Mary. I absolutely love her. She's wonderful. But the reason I pointed it out is that, by the way, in the Queen Mary days when they sailed, like the lower class could only use the stern of the ship. First class only had the bow. So you could not, unlike today, you could not access the entire ship. But that's one great thing about cruising today, because you correct me if I'm wrong, but you can access pretty much the entire ship, right? For even the cheapest cabins.
Yeah, there are.
Right. You can't go up to the bridge, but you know.
They do have bridge tours on a lot of ships.
They do.
And that's something that I've always wanted to do, because you can do these tours of like the engine room and the bridge and that kind of stuff. Heather, what cruise line was it? It was a Norwegian ship, I'm sure. Was it Jewel, where there's actually a window that you can go up and it's right off of the award room?
That was Holland America.
Was that Holland America? Okay.
It was Mazda. Rest in peace, Mazda.
I'll see if I can find that photo of the Queen Mary, if I can find it real fast.
But
Ashley, do you have any other? Ashley asked, I should say. Do you have any other questions?
Which cruise? You just named off Ashley K, I think. You named off a bunch of all like the entertainment, the theaters, the magicians. Is there a specific one that has a lot of that, or are they pretty typical always? All of them?
Most of the new ships, like if you want the really high-tech stuff, and a lot of cruise lines are slowly going through and refurbing some of their older ships to have some of the more modern amenities. But I'd say anything launched in the last, 10 years or so, 5 to 10 years would be a pretty solid bet. The really new ones. Right. Like Royal Caribbean's very active. So they've got rock climbing walls. They've got surf simulators. They've got skydiving simulators. They've got bumper cars.
You've got the eye that goes up.
Yes. There, like Carnival has started adding, there's something called Skyride, which is like side-by-side tandem. It's almost like a suspended recumbent exercise bike. And the track goes around like the pool deck, but it's elevated, so you go out over the water and stuff, and you can
that's
the person
so weird.
next to
I like that.
Yeah, they will have the first roller coaster at sea on Mardi Gras, which is their new ship that is coming out, I believe, next year. It got pushed. And
wow.
I'm trying to. Norwegian has a virtual reality gaming room on its newest ships called the Galaxy Pavilion. They have go-karts on the top deck, like actual go-karts with a track that you can race all around.
That's
okay, I would do that.
FYI, Galaxy Pavilion in VR and drinking is not a good combo.
Yeah, well, especially if you get, sick.
Yeah. I can't do VR even when I haven't been drinking.
But even beyond those gee whiz technical features, I think one of the things that all the cruise lines have done too is really up the game in terms of live productions, or and then I guess in parallel to that, have decided that they don't want to compete in that space. So, for instance, Carnival has done, I think, a really good job with the playlist productions, but also acknowledging the fact that Carnival's not the place you're going to go if you want to see Rock of Ages.
Right.
But the playlist productions has done a really good job of doing short musical things that have a lot of sizzle with lasers and smoke machines and that kind of stuff and some cool dancing. But
And some hot guys.
You go, you have fun, and you're out of there, and you're back out to the casino, you're back out to the bar, you're back out to the piano, whatever you're doing. Whereas, is it MSC that has the official Cirque du Soleil?
Mm-hmm.
And I know Royal Caribbean has Mamma Mia and.
They have a bunch. I think Saturday Night Fever, Mamma Mia. I think at one point they had Cats and Hairspray. Not sure if those are still going on.
That's so cool.
Yeah, Norwegian at one point had Legally Blonde, which is no longer there, but now they have, what is it, Rock of Ages, and there's another one. I forget, but those
So it's
two do
really
the Broadway
whatever you're
thing.
looking for, and entertainment is all in the eyes of the beholder. Personally, for me, if I want to go see a Broadway production, I'm going to go to New York, and I'm not even really into that anyhow. Although I hear that, what was one on Encore? Were you on Encore or something? Was it Jersey Boy, or was that? And Norwegian has some Broadway stuff too, but I'm not into that. But at the same time, I really liked the Playlist production stuff on Carnival, and I also really, really liked the what was that drinking show that they had?
That's what I was gonna say. There was this show on Norwegian Breeze that you're actually part of it. You're in a New Orleans speakeasy.
Norwegian Breeze.
Bliss.
Oh, Bliss.
Or
Sorry.
I wouldn't know.
I wouldn't know.
we just announced the first of the Leonardo classic.
You're invited to go in. It was $25 extra into speakeasy, and you have women dancing around and guys and stuff like that, like you would during Prohibition. And they bring you different drinks, 5 different drinks throughout the show to have.
Okay.
They're like, okay, another drink for you all. What?
They're not the best drinks. They're kind of mass produced, but it's kind of a fun
experience.
It's set in a brothel right before Prohibition the musical. That's what it's called. And
that sounds great.
It's kind of a very light burlesque show, and it's kind of fun because you're sitting there going, they'll integrate a gimlet into the act, and then you have waiters going around to the audience giving you a gimlet, and then 5-10 minutes later you're having a sidecar, and it's just a fun thing like that. So when you look at stuff, definitely check out, figure out what's important to you, because what's important to Ashley S might be different than what's important to Kevin. And
no, we do everything the same.
I was gonna say we're pretty much. I'm pretty sure
Another
one
fun
time.
thing.
Although one thing I would imagine, and I'm being sexist here, Kevin, perhaps you like to get a facial or a good massage as well. But someone tells me Ashley is much more inclined to go, ooh, a spa. And the spas are really awesome on cruise ships as well.
Well, that
If you have to pay extra, I won't be doing them.
Well, you can get a day
they're
package.
expensive.
The person
Okay.
that was asking me
I
the
don't ever
question
go
about
to
all the
spas.
drinks, the special, the drink package, I said, come back and answer. I'll do a story for Pub Club. Bring me back all the answers to these questions. So she wrote them down. She took them. And I said, well, what are the answers? She said, oh, I don't know. We spent our whole time in the spa.
But you know what? Some of these spas, the packages I'm talking about that you can get for a day or for the entire week, include the thalassotherapy pool, different like snow rooms, different saunas, steam rooms, amazing beds that you lay on and they're heated. Oh, they're so nice.
Really nice.
And then you can look out over everything. I mean, it all depends. Are you wanting to be active, or do you want to recoup, or do you want a mixture of both? So there's something for everybody.
Yeah.
I have another question, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
When they go into port, you can just go on and off. I know you can buy excursions, say if you want to go snorkeling, but are you just, is part of your deal just to go on and off the ship at port? Or do you have to, is that part of what you get?
You
have to go through security.
Normally, yeah. Normally, yes. You can get on and off as you please. You can go ashore for a while, get back on board for lunch since it's included in your price. If you don't want to pay extra to eat ashore, and then go back ashore if you want to. But we're sort of waiting to see what happens with this whole COVID situation.
Well, normal situations, though.
Normal situation, yes. You can come and go as you please, as many times as you want. I think it's worth noting, though, that some ports are called tender ports. So there's not an actual dock there, which means the ship will sail as close as it can get to port, drop anchor, lower a couple of the lifeboats, and ferry people back and forth. So that can be somewhat more of a process if you're thinking about coming and going.
You better think ahead.
But otherwise, it's usually pretty easy.
What is the
That could be a
average time that you're
15-minute,
allowed?
It depends on what they're allowed to dock for. I mean, sometimes in Cozumel, you'll get there at 8 a.m. and you'll be there till 4. It just, because it costs them a lot of money to dock at each port.
Right.
So, I mean,
Okay.
it all depends. But I will say this, I usually do not do all of I don't do excursions according to the cruise ship most of the time. I have, and I will again, but there are some places like in Cozumel, I go to this beach club for the day. I pay ahead of time, like $11, and then when I get there, I pay the rest. It's $55 a day. It includes all my food and all my drink, and it sit in a swimming pool overlooking the ocean.
With the swim
Ooh.
hot tub.
Pool bar, $55.
Oh, sounds lovely.
Nice, yeah.
And the service is really good. The shrimp there is amazing, and I don't even know the guy's name, but I've seen the guy a lot of times. I hope he's okay. I hope he's still there next time I go to Cozumel, because I can't wait to see him again. But I'll be sitting there in the pool, to kind of floating around with a bottle of whatever beer, Dos Equis or something like that. And he'll see that my bottle is floating to the point where it's basically empty, and he'll just give me another bottle. Like, it's not even a matter of saying like, oh, senor, you need another bottle. It's just like,
that's so sweet.
It's fantastic, and it's $50 a day.
Yeah,
So,
I know. Food, drinks, kidding me? That sounds amazing.
And of
Sign
course,
me
you
up.
give like a $20 tip or $30 tip on top of that.
Of course. Yeah, I mean, that's why he's doing it.
Yeah.
It's very easy to do it on your own if with just a small bit of planning. The key thing to remember is if you do anything ashore and it is not booked through the cruise ship, make sure you are back at the ship on time, because it will not wait for you.
Well,
unless
I do know.
Okay.
You can't possibly wait on, say, 300 people being late, because they would never, so
Yeah.
you better get to the ship. And I would assume you better get there an hour early at least, because I've been to Monterey, I've been on the dock and seen people lined up, all the way down, the dock front to get on to get the tenders out there. So you better, you better get back at least an hour early, I would think.
Yeah.
Now, if you are on one of their excursions that you paid for,
It's up to them. You just stick with the group.
And there's
Then you're safe. So, it's like one less thing to stress about. It's like getting back. It's like, well, if they're late, then, they'll wait for you, right? Yeah, right.
And certain itineraries that's more important for. Like, for instance, if you're in the Caribbean, for the most part, the itineraries are going to be relatively close to shore. But when we were up in New Brunswick, I think it was, some of the excursions and the stuff that's truly iconic, the same for Alaska, stuff that's truly iconic, the stuff that you paid the money to get up there in the first place to do, might be a 3-hour bus ride from the port.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're on a 3-hour bus ride in New Brunswick and you have an accident and it's your private cruise or your private tour, you are screwed. Because I can't even imagine how expensive it would be to have a last-minute flight from whatever airport New Brunswick has back to Boston.
That is why travel insurance is
I think
important.
you've got a long excursion like that, you better stick with the official cruise line tour, because if you're with them, if something happens, they have to deal with it. You don't have to deal with it. So I would think that if you're going snorkeling on the beach, and Key West or something, then and you go on your own, then you're on your own. You better get back and not spend too much time in Sloppy Joe's.
And that being said, even experienced people like Heather and I have almost missed the boat on at least one occasion. And I'm going to blame Cayman Distilling for that, because we looked up and we're like,
"Hey, I don't remember any of this."
I can see why you might have been running late.
Yeah,
it was a very, very good day. It was Cayman Distilling, which, by the way, we're going to add that to our list of places we got to go to at some point, Kevin. They had some of the best rum in the Caribbean, as far as I'm concerned.
Wow.
We looked at our watches and said, like, oh, it's 3:45, and the call for the port was at 4:00.
Oh my God!
And
how far away were you?
What's that?
How far away were you?
15 minutes away.
Yeah, so luckily,
oh
the gods of rum, shone down upon us and delivered us a taxi who didn't screw us and was able to get us to the port, just under the wire. Like, literally, the guys, the immigration officer,
yeah.
You had to catch a tender.
Yeah.
You had to catch a tender to the port or to the ship in Cayman. So yeah.
And so we ended up being okay
Oh
because
my
usually the call time is a good 15-20 minutes beforehand, and the ship usually isn't gonna. The ships never leave on time because they kind of assume that you're going to be a pier runner. By the way, anybody wants to see some interesting videos?
I like that term, a pier runner.
Google pier runner on YouTube, and
They're
there's
so
definitely
fun.
some videos
So
of
fun.
people, especially in Cozumel, where you have the really long pier. And you have like a we saw a mom and a dad running with their kid, like literally they were stringing the kid up, between them, and then like you could see in the, I don't know, maybe you couldn't see it, but you could feel in the guy's head that the dad said, "Shit, we're not going to make it, so I'm just going to leave you guys behind. I'm going to run up and tell the guy not to leave." Because you're thinking like, okay, well that dad like just was really selfish. Like, hell, you slowpokes are going to stay here. But the reality, I think he was trying to make sure the ship didn't leave without him. Even though the reality is the captain's sitting up on the bridge going like,
okay, yeah,
what are these guys doing? But every
my
cruise
favorite part is not even.
Uh-oh.
Go ahead, Ash.
My favorite part is not even the pier runners. It is the. Sorry. Oh no, something keeps delaying here, but it's not even the pier runners that I enjoy. It's the fellow passengers who are like hanging out of their balconies, booing and cheering and screaming. And, why are you late? Run faster!
It's okay when I'm a flight attendant, so like we always call it the airport Olympics. So when people are running through the terminal because they're late, it's hysterical because their suitcases, Oh man, always get a kick out of that. I've been that person plenty of times, don't get me wrong.
I was so late for a flight one time, this is pre 9/11, that because I was, having a good time at lunch, late lunch, and I rolled up, I'm like, like James said, oh crap, I got to get to the airport. I had a rental car, I drove it up to the check-in thing, what's the sky cap. I said, what do I do? Like, well, with that flight, if I got to take this rental car back, he said, no problem. Just pop the hood on it, go in and call him, tell him broke down, and I'll take care of it for you. So
that's so
I popped the hood on the rental car.
I hope you tipped the guy well.
Gave the guy $20 or so and ran in and called, hey, my car broke down. The sky cap has it. Thanks very much. Click, ran, got on the gate. And, and I'm there and the flight attendants are like doing this thing like we were just getting ready to close that gate.
Thank God for the sky cap. Oh my goodness.
Oh my gosh, that's so nice of him. He should have been like, sorry.
It was completely my fault, so I would have had to, my company was paying for it, but completely my fault. I was late. But I do want to point out, I think it was Joe made a great comment earlier. He said a lot of the cruise lines have great bartenders and they'll when to cut people off. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a great point. Any good bartender, any good bar knows how to do that because, I do not like people that are drunk and obnoxious and all that stuff. So I want to make a point that I saw that and I completely agree. I think that's a great point that he made.
Drink water in between drinks, and
that's great. Yeah, for
because I'm sure you're going to dehydrate on a ship and all. As well as drinking alcohol, right?
And in terms of the water thing, I know Heather loves her bottled waters. I, on the other hand, am a green person who loves the earth and protects our environment.
Oh my goodness, James.
But in all seriousness, I hate bottled water, so I always bring a sports bottle. And
you can fill that up. That's a great tip.
You cannot fill up a bottle at the buffet, for instance, because they will not allow you from a sanitation perspective. So if you do that, make sure to bring a cup with you or use a cup in your room to fill up in the same way with ice. It's a little bit awkward, but it works. In some of the newer ships, and especially on the small ship stuff, they're actually putting water bottle refilling stations.
Nice.
But
like you see in the airports. Yeah,
kind of the same thing. I don't know if the newer Carnival ships have or newer Norwegian ships have. I know the Norwegian ships have the new recyclable bottles, which are pretty cool.
I will say you can also, just like how he said, you can order liquor and have it in your room when you get there, the bottles. Yeah. You can also do that with soda, like just you want a few cans for something. And I do that with bottled water.
We used to carry it on, but it ended up being just, you're lugging a
it's heavy
30 pack of water bottles through the check-in versus just paying. What is it? What is the fee that we pay on the ship? It's not.
Norwegian
it's like double the normal
is expensive.
Price.
I know that compared to Carnival's. I don't know the price, but I know it is more expensive. But if you are a loyalty member, if after so many cruises, you start getting benefits. They'll put like a bottle of water in your room, or give you chocolates, or different things.
And we talked about water, we talked about juice, we talked about soda, and we talked about alcohol. At least on Princess, and maybe other cruise lines too, they also include specialty juices, coffees, and Princess includes milkshakes. So
Ooh.
it was a delicious cruise, but it was probably a
Smoothies.
mistake to have that many milkshakes, because again, I kind of got into the mode of like, oh, I paid for this, so we're just walking by, I gotta go grab a milkshake.
Oh my gosh,
and it
how
would also
funny.
allow you to do like non-alcoholic mudslides and that kind of stuff. So that was a kind of a
So
cool
Heather's
feature
losing weight and you're gaining weight over here,
Well, it's on a cruise,
give me a milkshake. Oh my gosh, I haven't had a milkshake in ages. I'd probably go to town as well.
I have another drink question. You guys will probably laugh at this, but my journalism teacher told me the only dumb question is the one you don't ask. So keep that in mind as you're laughing, thinking that's a really dumb question. Can you, if you get a drink at the pool bar or at a bar, can you walk anywhere in the ship with it? If you get a drink at one bar and then decide you want to go to another bar, you can just, it's just basically.
Walk wherever.
And that
like
includes
plastic
just
cups?
the dining
please.
room.
Yeah, no, a lot of them are glass, but please, the only request I have, don't leave your glasses in random places. It makes more work for the crew.
I hate that.
Can't
I
tell
hate
you
that.
how many
I
times
hate that.
I've seen glasses on the stairwell, glasses in the
No,
elevator.
that's
Like,
Yeah,
be
I
an
hate that.
I
adult
clean up
about it.
after myself.
But if you get a champagne flute from the art auction and you're walking down the hall, you can always drop it on the bar at the casino.
Okay, all right.
But just don't be a dick.
Or
Yeah,
if you
sorry.
are going outside, try to get a plastic cup instead of glass.
Right.
Yeah, well, I'm
Right,
sure the
yeah.
pool,
Or by
they're
the
all
pool.
plastic,
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Yeah.
Yeah. Plastic. Yeah.
To be fair, that just to clarify, that was not directed at anyone here. That was just more a general
no,
statement
it's-
for anyone
we
watching.
know.
I'm so sorry I left
It's
that
a great
glass on
point.
encore.
I'm sorry.
And do they have cool coasters at the bars like this? I love these. These are my souvenirs.
I don't know if they're cool, but I know Norwegian has coasters.
They
But
do?
Yeah.
So is there ever like a lot of like sway, or is it just so big it just don't really feel like you're on a boat?
The Queen Mary did. Apparently, it swayed a lot. Matter of fact, they had to put in railings along the sides, in the hallways, because people were falling down.
But not in Long Beach.
Not in Long Beach. No, she doesn't go anywhere.
No, it depends on where you're going, really. I mean, I would say if you're doing a Bahamas cruise, it'll probably be pretty tame. The waters are pretty calm there. It depends on where you're going. Like, we left from Tampa once, and that was my first cruise, and everyone's like, oh, you're never going to feel it. I don't get motion sickness, but let me tell you, that boat was going up and down.
Really
And
choppy.
it's because, there was a current that meets there somewhere, and it caused that. So, I mean, it can be, but most of the time in the Caribbean, you're not going to find that as much unless you're headed south. When you head south to Aruba, you will get more. I don't think it's much, but there are people who are very sensitive to that, and it bothers them. The only time I've ever been bothered by any was when we did now I didn't get sick. It was just at night I was upset because I wanted to sleep, and I kept getting lifted a little bit out of the bed.
That's like probably the hardest part for me is sleeping. But I'll just hopefully just pass out, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was just a repositioning.
It can be relaxing though. It can kind of lull you to sleep.
Yeah.
That one was pretty rough, and and Mazdan was a pretty small ship too. Like, Mazdan was what, the 53,000 gross tons or something?
They had puke containers, bags everywhere.
But that being said, there's different places on the ship you can go. Like if you know going into your cruise planning that you are going on a trip to Alaska, or you're going on a trip to the Southern Caribbean, for instance, where you probably have more likely to have some swells. There's places that you can be, such as midship. I can't remember if it's higher or lower, but middle. Your travel advisor will know this, and that helps mitigate some of the issues. And that cruise that Heather mentioned in Tampa, I generally don't get seasick, but I'm extremely sensitive to motion. Um, the bow of the ship where the theater was that night, where she's talking about how rough it was, I was very uncomfortable. And so, if you know that that's who you are, then you might just consider avoiding those kind of areas, and also other things such as, maybe you don't drink as much that night. Maybe you make sure that if you are drinking, you
Yeah.
have
Take some
a full
Dramamine or
stomach.
whatever it is.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Dramamine because I haven't tried it, but
Mhm.
my understanding is that things like that can actually have other effects, and it kind of makes you a little jittery. Some people say it's good. Some people prefer
Oh, really?
those side
I
effects
don't get
over,
sick.
it's the same thing when you're flying. I mean, certain people get,
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
mean, at this point, I'm like, oh, it's a bump. Okay.
Just get a drink.
Yeah. I'm a fan of Dramamine. Yeah, I like Dramamine because it doesn't make you drowsy. Or I'm sorry, Bonine. Bonine doesn't make you drowsy. Dramamine tends to, I guess. But it does work.
Well, I have perhaps one final question. And don't laugh. Can you party with the crew? I don't tell me they don't have their own private parties at night
Oh,
and
they
some
do.
stateroom, and
Yes and no.
uh, and they're not on duty the whole time, and they're young, they're fun, they're probably looking to, have some fun with, So what's the just play it by ear kind of thing?
They're
Not
not.
unless you want them to get fired.
Yeah, you're not going to their private parties. That's going to be completely forbidden. That being said, I'm sure.
Do they ever hang
certain
out in the
times-
bars off duty in their non-cruise ship, their non-work attire?
You can definitely engage with them and interact with them.
Sometimes, yeah, you'll see that more with, I think, the onboard performers who are brought on for maybe
Well, that
one or
would be
two
part of it,
sailings at a
yeah.
time. Yeah, so like the magicians or sometimes you run into the comedian at the bar, and that's fine. You can chat him up because he's not technically a crew member. He's just like a guest presenter or performer. But for crew who are on a,
It's a big
like a,
I would
yeah,
say,
no.
in general, any crew member who is in a guest space is on duty, even when they're not in their formal attire. They're on duty.
They usually are still wearing their badge
Yeah.
when they're off duty.
That makes
if they're in
sense.
public.
But that being said, certainly
Maybe they put on a wig and sunglasses. You don't recognize them.
But I've had great conversations with some of these crew, and we met some of especially the performers, like Ashley mentioned. You'll see them off ship sometimes. You'll be able to ask them questions, but don't be under any illusion they are still on duty anytime that they see you, and that goes even for especially older people. But you'll see older women on the cruises that have a relatively younger guy. And it's completely up and up. They're professional dance hosts or those kind of things.
Casino host, yeah.
It's not what it looks like initially, where you're like, you go girl, or oh, someone just hired an escort. Some of it maybe, I'm not going to judge, but the cruise lines do have hosts that are there to make people feel comfortable, especially for single passengers.
Interesting.
Is it single, or I thought it was just casino? Like if you spend a lot of money in the casino, you get a host.
Well, I know the dance.
Well, wait a minute, now we get to other
Sounds
territory.
like a escort to me.
There are specifically dance hosts to help people have.
Oh,
fun
well, yeah.
dancing.
Okay, that's a little different.
But yeah, there's also of course you have the genie. I would love to book a room where it had a genie on Royal Caribbean. That sounds so freaking cool.
Yeah.
The genie is kind of like
Yeah.
your super butler, and my understanding is the request you can ask your genie for can be absolutely lavishly, insanely difficult, and they'll pretty much be able to find it. Like if you said,
Yeah.
I need to have this kind of chocolate from from this place in Los Angeles, like they'll probably fly it in for you, and that gives you an idea of what level of a room you just booked. But
Wow,
Yeah, that's a very, very expensive perk.
I was like something I will never.
Does she look like Barbara Eden?
With their crew question, I have run into crew members ashore, like in port, particularly in ports where a ship might overnight. Overnights don't happen often, but they do in places like Bermuda, where a ship might dock for 2 or 3 days. So you really get like a taste for that location. But when I was in Bermuda, I went to a local nightclub, and like probably 3/4 of the people there were crew members.
Okay, well, that's completely
so,
I mean, I would be wanting to,
Off the
I would
ship,
want to
yeah.
hang
They're
out.
fair
with
game
them.
then.
I know. I'm gonna say like I know I would want to hang out with the crew. Like that would be, you always want. We can't have and they're usually pretty hot and young, and
Well, she's not wrong.
Well, when we were at that one beach club that I was telling you about, 2 of the dancers were there, and we hung out with them a little bit in the pool and talked to them. They like coming there because they only allow 100 people in a day. So it's very, they can go and enjoy themselves, and
yeah,
don't have to worry about people swarming them, because sometimes they want to get away from us.
believe me, I know what that's like.
Well, I do know a friend of mine, James, you may know him, Travel Tales podcast, Mike Sigel, who's one of his jobs is a comedian on cruise ships. And Mike's no teetotaler. So I guarantee Mike would be out, in the bars having a couple of drinks and be happy to talk to somebody. So when your point about, the performers, is different than the crew, the actual crew.
And the crew performers. Because there are, the dancers that are through them. So they don't really do that either. But yes, our last cruise we were on, our waiter was telling us about how much fun he had the night before in their disco down below. So they have a good time down there.
And anytime you have a question, feel free to ask the crew, because the crew will give you a brutally honest answer for things like, hey, what do you recommend as far as a place to get a great sandwich in wherever? They'll know the places, and they generally aren't going to be forced to steer you to the one that the port guide is steering you towards.
They'll also know the cheapest places to go, like in port. If you forget to pack deodorant or something, don't buy it on the ship if you can wait a day, because the ship will charge you $20 for a stick of deodorant.
Oh my god!
And the crew, because they often have to buy supplies when they're in port, will know the cheapest place to go and can steer you to something that's not super touristy and expensive.
Or better yet, the bar that's got the best happy hour in port.
And if you're ever looking for good Filipino food or good Malaysian food, the crew members will tell you. Like in Alaska, you wouldn't think about having Filipino food in Alaska, but every port in Alaska has multiple Filipino restaurants, and that's because the crew wants. You're left. Have you ever noticed that?
I've only been to Anchorage.
Are you which Ashley? You got to say Ashley.
Oh, I guess can't say. I just pointed to Ashley on the screen, and I'm like, you probably can't.
Yeah, you.
Ashley K.
I never noticed that, but that's a really good tip. When I go to Alaska, I'm more about the seafood personally, but.
Yeah. I agree. You wouldn't normally put I'm going to go get some great Filipino food, but. It's one of those things where if you think about it, you have literally thousands of Filipinos and other Asians and other nationalities depending on.
Digger would like that. Don't tell Digger, he'll be on that cruise tomorrow.
Indian food is usually really good on some ships, because a lot of your people from India are the chefs on ships. So there's some good Indian food.
That reminds me too, a lot of ships are really good at catering to dietary restrictions. So if you are vegetarian or vegan, if you are gluten-free, if you, can't eat dairy, most ships can accommodate that as long as you let them know in advance. And usually a chef will come out and show you what you can and can't eat, like on the buffet, for example. If you request something a couple days ahead, they can usually prepare it for you. They'll make you like a whole special menu for the duration of the sailing, which is pretty neat.
Crab cakes. This is my tip. On Carnival.
Great inside tip here.
We have friends that are gluten-free. And I was gluten-free, but not for a while, but not on this trip. When they get a crab cake, it's just tons of crab in there. No filler, anything.
Like the ones they served us. Yeah, go on.
So when you're with those people, everybody gets that same crab cake that's delicious and no filler.
Yum.
Yeah.
Or say you have that, and they will give you a crab cake without filler.
Note to self. Well, guys, I gotta take off, but thanks for answering all these questions. And now I'm hungry, and I'm looking forward to my first cruise ship. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Sounds good. Well, thanks for joining us. And
Have a good one.
Yeah, thanks.
Bye,
We're
guys.
at an hour and 35 minutes now.
Hi, Ashley. Love the outfit.
Bye. Love you. Thank you.
Well, I need to rock here pretty soon. James and I have a big show coming up tomorrow with featuring Mario Andretti and Al Unser Jr.
That's going to be awesome. I'm so excited for that.
Yeah. We got.
That's cool.
I got to make sure IndyCar is going to put it out on their social media platforms. And
Are they going to be on the entire time?
Who knows? Mario, I don't know. I don't know how much time he has. Al probably, because he's not really doing anything. So, but we're going to go straight to Mario and let him. He's going to give us at least 15 minutes. So I want to take full advantage of that.
So it's going to be like
That's
a night
great.
club. It's like I don't even know what we're calling the show because it's not the virtual happy hour, but
we're just calling it
the live stream featuring Mario Andretti, where it'd be like a nightclub where he shows up, 25 minutes before midnight and speaks for 15 minutes.
I was just gonna say right on cue.
We'll take Mario as long as we have him, but he'll give us at least 15 minutes, probably 20, and we'll go straight to him. He's an integral part of the history of the Long Beach Grand Prix. But talked about doing the show. I told the founder, Chris Pook, I said, Chris, we got to have Mario on and even have an Al on who won it 6 times would be even better. By the way, James, I owe you an apology. I said Al won it 5 times. You actually won it 6. So I'm just up there. Oh, well. But anyway, so I got to go and do some advanced prep for that. And,
well, I think we're going to end in general. I hope we answered your questions.
You did, and don't laugh too much, but those are literally questions people ask me and grill me on them. And I like to have answers because otherwise I'm not an authoritative voice on something. So, asking the direction about the drinks, the quality, and I realize it varies from time, from ship to ship. But those are all questions that people would ask me, including what time does it end? Does it end at your 15th drink? You better end before midnight. If you have one at 12:01, does that count against the next day? So those are all
some of the questions. Is that there's nuances and variations among all the different lines, but generally speaking, I wish more people would ask these questions because I feel like there's probably a fairly large number of people who book these cruises and then don't ask the questions and are on the complete.
And they're frustrated. They're frustrated, or they get pissed off. They get pissed off at the cruise line, or maybe Heather, if you book in it, maybe they get pissed off at you because you're like, well, my agent told me this. What maybe you didn't, but exactly.
And the challenge is a lot of times people don't even know the question to ask to get the answer.
I try to cite what I see on the pages so that I don't get in trouble. I can say from my experience, but if you want to know really what their method is, here's this page and I'll send them a link just so that, I don't want backlash from it.
Those were all really good questions, though. I mean, I think cruising is such a unique type of travel and such a different vacation from land-based travel because there are so many moving parts. It's not like you just, when you need a hotel, you figure out which one, in that destination. Or, if you're booking something fun to do during the day, when you're not cruising, it's just you call up and you book it. But with the cruise, you're talking about your accommodation, sometimes your food reservations, what you want to do when you're in port. There's just a lot more moving parts. So I think questions that might seem silly aren't. They're very legitimate questions.
My journalism teacher was right. The only dumb question is when you don't ask.
We should do another one of these episodes, but maybe have it more focused. I'd love to have you back, Kevin. But maybe we do an episode where it's questions new cruisers have about food. Questions new cruisers have about shore excursions. That way we can maybe focus a little bit more because there's a ton of questions that even I think never before cruisers, is that a word? People who never cruised before oftentimes don't know the question to ask, but people who have cruised a few times but are looking for something to solve problems that they had in the first cruise now are suddenly more engaged, and I'd like to explore some of those topics.
Well, I should bring on a bartender from Carnival, which is the more, party thing, and maybe a bartender from a higher end, I don't know, Norwegian or whatever, and to have them talk about make their drinks and talk about their specific rules on the cruise ship. I think it'd be very interesting.
Unfortunately, that generally is not going to happen.
Okay.
The cruise industry is extremely conservative, extremely tight-lipped. they're not very good at they're very good at promotional PR, but they're generally terrible about actually engaging with people.
That's why I didn't get invited on those cruises from the, from meeting with all their people.
We can have that conversation, once we hang up. But let's stick around for a few minutes. Nothing bad about you. It's just the cruise industry is it just operates differently. But within the guest side of things, certainly I think it would be nice to have your friend who was the comedian on Cruises Online. There's certain people we talked to recently who were well, actually, I guess it's the guy who we talked to in the Tropical Show that performed as a musician on some of the cruises. People like them, I think, would be good, and they could talk. But as far as actually getting a bartender from Carnival talking about how they work versus a guy from Norwegian, just isn't going to happen. They're super
out there.
So. But anyhow, I'm going to go hang up and broadcast unless anybody has any other questions. Kevin, stay on it, and we'll talk more about stuff.
Stay safe, everyone, and book a cruise.
Right.
It's going to be fun.
Wear your
See you
mask.
next week.
I hate it, but you got to do it.
Bye.